Hello, my name is Stephanie Mehta. I am editor of Fast Company, and thank you so much for joining us for this special session with the principals of A Starting Point, a civic engagement website that is launching today. Please join me in welcoming today's panelists. Chris Evans is a director, producer, and actor, best known for his portrayal of Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe films. He currently can be seen in Defending Jacob on Apple TV+. He is starring and executive producer. We also have Mark Casson. Mark is an actor, director, and producer whose work has appeared in film, television, and theater. Mark is the founder and executive chairman of Like-Minded Media Ventures, a tech and media content company. And finally, Joe Kiani is chairman and CEO and founder of Masimo Corporation. Masimo is a medical company that is publicly traded. He is also a co-founder of Like-Minded Ventures, and Joe, along with Chris and Mark, are co-founders of A Starting Point. Later in the session, we will be joined by Mia Charity, who is Chief Development Officer for Close-Up Foundation, which is A Starting Point's education partner. Please join me in welcoming Chris Evans, Mark Casson, and Joe Kiani. Mark and Chris are entertainers and directors and filmmakers, so it should come as no surprise that to tell the story of A Starting Point, which is launching today, they have produced a film to help us understand what A Starting Point is all about. Let's take a look.
So what is your website called? What is the...
A Starting Point.
A Starting Point.
If you guys could get that sweet spot where people on both sides listen to you.
Hey, what's going on, dude? Okay, I'm gonna try. I wrote some of this down, but mostly I'm winging it.
It was an idea I had in 2017. I was watching the news, and there was something I didn't understand, and I went to Google it, and right away I was in the weeds. There was just this mountain of information to sift through, and I thought, what if there was a way that I could get not only concise answers to common questions, but get the answers from the elected officials themselves? I take a lot of my ideas to Mark because he brings those ideas to life.
Honestly, I was instantly inspired. It was a great idea.
We start with a huge list of questions, every question we can possibly think of. You send it to every politician in DC. You say you pick the ones you want to answer. You get at least, in my opinion, at least three. I think at least three Democrats, 3 Republicans to answer each question, and you keep them all to about a minute, maybe 2 minutes.
It really was just, where do we start? How do we do this? I thought, okay, well, I'll make a video and we'll send it out to the politicians, and who wouldn't want to be a part of this?
There actually are 3 incarnations of it. One of them I filmed in my bedroom on my laptop.
Hi, I'm Chris Evans. If you're watching this video, it's because I'm hoping you'll be interested in being a part of a new media platform we're developing.
It was terrible. It was embarrassing. Then I did another one on my kitchen table, and that was just as terrible. Finally, we did one in LA. It was me sitting on my couch saying, hi, I'm Chris. I'm trying to do this thing. And it was the very beginning of the idea itself. It turns out a lot of people thought it was a joke.
Honestly, we have a lot of responses. People think it's a bot or it's fake.
Most people just didn't respond. We just got no response.
Because why on earth would Chris Evans send the video?
And you think, man, this is going to be a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be.
So I went to my friend Joe Kiani, who has been working in politics for years through philanthropic efforts, and I said, can you help get some politicians to talk to us?
Nice to see you again.
Yo, how you doing, buddy?
Man.
It was terrifying and exciting. Exciting because we were doing something new, exciting because it felt like we were of service.
Terrifying because 4 people had just said they were going to do it.
Initially, it was very hard to get people to trust us.
There have been so many Hollywood celebrities who have come through and essentially tricked members of Congress.
And we'll get people to trust us.
I'm happy to jump on the phone or get a coffee or whatever's necessary to kind of put their concerns at ease.
So every time someone would leave and say, hey, thanks, that was really actually enjoyable, please tell your friends.
Right.
Please tell everybody.
Anything we can do to help, let me know.
Yeah, well, spread the word. Spread the word. You would spread the word. We just want to let them put
Tim
their
Scott,
best
one of my
foot
best
forward.
friends. He needs to do this. This is an opportunity for you to get to a wide audience, but hold on, here he is. Hold on a second.
I was like, ah.
We'd love to have you come down and just nothing you don't want to answer.
And the next day, Tim Scott came in. It was amazing.
Well, every time we'd go back, you'd look at the schedule for that coming week, and there would just be more and more and more names. And you realize, okay, this is actually working.
I think it's such a great idea to try to sort of demystify some of these policy issues.
You're trying to create an atmosphere where there's a dialogue.
While we were getting questions and trying to figure out the narrative of the site, there's this team of technicians putting together a very robust technology.
That was one of the most exciting things for me, being able to be in a room with people and kind of say, this is how I want it to look, and this is what we think is the most effective approach, and then seeing it in real time, and then taking that product back to DC, and seeing other people's eyes light up and get excited about the mechanism, and actually saying, this is what it'll look like, this is how it will convey the information that you want to convey. That's when we really felt like we were gaining steam.
Good stuff, guys. Good stuff.
So the first section is called Starting Points, short answers to common questions. When you click on a question, you'll see both the Democratic and Republican responses. Each contributor has a chance to attach links to further information on the issue.
The more we would go back, the more we would do these interviews, the more we realized that there was a lot of issues that these elected officials wanted to talk about that didn't fit into the mechanism of Section 1.
I'm not short. I want to give you details.
You don't have enough time for me to explain.
I could explain that, but I don't know if that fits in one of your questions.
It just felt like there was a piece missing. And we started to realize this can be more than just static information. This can be a channel of constant information.
This is where we were talking about the threads. There's this idea that I think still needs some massaging.
Maybe they can do a 60-second video once a week. And then we thought, well, maybe why once a week? Maybe once a day. And then we thought, you know what? Why not whenever they want? How about all the time? Why deny this kind of channel of connectivity? So sections 2 and 3 were born.
The second section is called Daily Points. Daily Points is an open forum where elected officials can upload 60-second videos on anything they want. If it's an issue in your district, do it from there, highlight that.
So it could be just like the issue du jour. So like we're talking about war powers today. Hey, I'm about to go give a speech on this topic. It's really important. Here's what I'm going to say.
You can make 20 a day if you want.
Section 1 informs. I think Section 2 connects. I think Section 3 explores.
One of the best ways to explore an issue is through debate. And unfortunately, when you have these televised debates, the inertia moves off topic. Someone makes a great point, before you get a chance to hear the response, it splinters. So with counterpoints, it's a way to have a connected, focused discussion around an issue.
Section 3 is called Counterpoints. It's a back and forth discussion between two elected officials from across the aisle on any issue they want to explore. All their videos are shot in 60 seconds.
Things that we feel may be less productive reward mechanisms, we try to remove those.
No likes or dislikes on this site.
The whole site. No likes or dislikes, no message.
No comment section.
That's smart. You can't flame me, trash me, smear me, slime me. Where's the fun?
We'll do that. You'll do that in our social circle.
For as nervous as we were in the beginning, coming back each time to the place we knew, to people that were familiar, it started to feel like we were doing something that was working and that people wanted to participate in.
We're going to have to get you a permanent office around here.
I don't know if I can handle that.
The hope is that we can become synonymous with an unbiased presentation of what is going on in Washington.
The goal is to present this information as best we can without tipping the scales, to make sure voters understand the issues clearly and that their voices can be heard.
I got into politics because I wanted to help people. Bigger diversity of voices.
To do good.
Climate change. Veterans issues.
A recognition that other people may have different points of view, but that we're all American, that we love our country very deeply.
The more people involved in politics, the better. And hopefully for the people who have no experience in this arena, will find this site to be an intuitive and friendly access point.
This is a platform of communication around the electorate. You know, it doesn't sound that sexy when you put it that way, but woohoo! But
so sign up.
Chris, Mark, Joe, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm going to start with you, Chris. We saw in that video you talked a little bit about the frustrations you felt. Why did you decide to start a starting point?
Well, initially it was well, there's a number of reasons. From the most macro point of view, I suppose it's about creating engagement. You know, we live in a country of 300 million plus people. I think roughly only 60% of the people voted. In my opinion, you're going to have a hard time creating a government that accurately reflects who we are as a nation with those type of numbers. So initially it was about trying to create participation. I'm pretty vocal on Twitter. I have been for a while. But it began to be a matter of efficacy. Playing that one string on Twitter is well and good, but we felt that if we could create a platform that encouraged information, education, involvement, participation, we may end up having a more long-term, meaningful impact on the political landscape.
So Mark, talk a little bit about that participation and engagement piece. There are a lot of outlets for people to express themselves. There are a lot of outlets for politicians to tell their story. What will make ASP different from all the other platforms that are out there, including the news media, of which I'm a part?
I mean, we're different because we only do one thing, right? Those platforms are a can of information on a lot of subjects. And I think to Chris's point, when people go looking for information, when they use a lot of the traditional platforms, which are great for lots of different types of entertainment and information, they do have to weed through different subject matters. We don't have that problem. We literally are strictly about what we're about, which is engaging people with their elected officials. So the elected officials can feel closer to the people who elected them, and hopefully be a little more accountable, and the people can feel therefore more empowered to eventually take action, which the only thing they can do through our site is to register to vote.
A lot of those other platforms that we are all thinking about, Twitter, Facebook, there's the social networks, those companies all make a lot of money from advertising. Joe, you're the traditional business person on this panel. What's the business model for ASP?
Well, I have made a living of not getting so worried about how I'm going to make money out of something, but is this something that's worthy? Is it going to make life better for some people? And if I can gather the right team and we think we can make a difference, we go for it. And fortunately, so far, that's worked out, that when you're driven by fascination and accomplishment, not power and greed, good things happen. So maybe one day we'll get handsomely rewarded, maybe not, but I think the point is what Chris said. We're trying to get people to get engaged, to vote, so that hopefully our government represents us all a little bit better.
So talk about some of the things that you won't do on the platform. Mark, I know that you have come out and said that this is not about gathering people's data to sell to third parties. Just talk a little bit about how you're structured and what kind of protections people can expect when they come to visit ASP.
Well, I mean, I think the best thing about how we're structured is we try to remove a lot of the reward mechanisms that we didn't think were as effective. So there's no likes or dislikes on our site. There's no message boards on our site. So when people come to our site who are contributors, who are elected officials, there isn't a base to galvanize on. It's their voice getting close to the folks who want to hear it. And then what we do with that data, all we do with anybody who logs in or who says who they are so they can figure out who their representative is, all we do is give them alerts about what's going on for us. We don't do anything to sell that to anybody. That's not a part of what we're trying to do. We're really trying to find a safe space, and that safe space means the clarity of our voice and our intent and what we do with technology.
I want to come back a little bit to the issue of allowing those politicians to have a platform. But before we do that, all three principles, you guys have been very explicit about the fact that you want this to be bipartisan, that you want this to be a place where people from all points of view can come and gather. Joe, I'll start with you, but I also want to ask this question of Chris. Joe, you've contributed mostly to Democratic politicians over the course of your career and the political contributions you've made. Talk a little bit about why, even though your politics may lean in one direction, you really feel it's important for ASP to be nonpartisan.
I believe strongly, if we all look at the same data, that we're going to mostly come to the same decision. So what I think is really important that we don't self-censor. And today, a lot of people get their data with a little bit of twist from MSNBC, or they get their data with a little bit of twist from Fox. And unfortunately, then the data isn't the same. So then people, I think, end up with decisions that are different than if they all saw the same data. So I think it's really important that this is a bipartisan site where everyone feels like it's not biased, they can go to it, and hopefully hear straight from the people that we've elected what they think about the different issues. DACA, immigration, Medicare, healthcare, whatever it is. Get the same data, and hopefully we'll all mostly come to the same or similar results.
Yeah, I agree. Well said. I mean, we can chicken or the egg this thing all day, but for whatever reason, I do think there is a real proliferation of doubting
what we read, what we see, what we hear. Anytime I read anything, my first question is, well, what's the agenda? What's the bias here? Where's the money? And I think, in turn, that kind of almost creates disengagement. I think people just kind of turn away from the process altogether. So despite the fact that I obviously have strong political opinions, it's no secret, the goal of this site, one of our main tenets, was to remove our subjectivity and at least provide people a place where they can know that this is a fair and balanced platform. Everyone had the same bite at the apple. There is no journalistic spin or flair. You're getting information directly from the elected officials themselves. And I think if you can remove at least that skepticism and doubt, you can start to absorb information in a more constructive manner.
Chris, when you first started going to Washington to talk to lawmakers and their teams and their staffs about the idea for a starting point, knowing that you had been vocal on Twitter, knowing that you have not been shy about your political point of view, did you have trouble securing meetings with people from the other side of the aisle? Did you have trouble getting conservative lawmakers to take meetings with you?
Oh, yeah. And, we anticipated that. Which is fine. But that's why, the process of going to D.C. and hat in hand and saying, look, I know, I'm not trying to hide the fact that, my opinions are out there. But as I said earlier, what I started to believe in was the potential efficacy of providing a place that only offered information. I'm always a proponent of saying, give me all the information and let me decide what I think is the most effective and what resonates with me. I think people are bloodhounds these days for feeling when there is deliberate omission. I don't think you can convince someone of something when you only offer them the information that you want them to see. So these were the selling points that I was offering elected officials, and again, I think it was a snowball process. At first, 2 or 3 Republicans would come and give us interviews, and they would say, that was nice, that was enjoyable. And we'd say, thank you, please tell your friends. We promise we're not trying to misrepresent you or be duplicitous in any way. This isn't something we're trying to do for 1 year and then bail. If we want to have this continue, we have to cultivate and nurture that new relationship of trust by showing them that this is not something where we want everyone to put their best foot forward. We want to give them a platform where they feel that their information will be accurately represented.
And to be fair to them, we didn't exist. So we asked people to come and sit down with us and answer questions when there was nothing for them to see what it was going to be.
You just say, trust us. And that's a tough leap to make. And that's why it did take time. But that's why we're so proud with the final product, because it really, I do believe that, you'll see when the site is actually up, each individual section of the site has varying mechanisms, but I think it holds up even under the stiffest scrutiny, that there really is no way for us to inject our opinions, and one of the main tenets of the site was being as objective as possible.
The site launches at a time, though, when there is this robust conversation taking place around not just information, but misinformation or purposely misleading information. And I wonder if you can talk, maybe Mark, I'll throw this one to you, about what the conversation has been inside ASP around information that someone posts to the site, someone uploads to the site, a politician who is a public figure that you all know to be misleading or to be false.
Well, we had a lot of talks about that, and there are a lot of examples, positive and negative, out there, and we had to figure out, like we did throughout the rest of the site, what was our version of how to hold up to our ideals and our best intentions. And so we did a couple of things. One is we decided to, we reached out to an organization called Countable, and we've done this throughout this process. We went to people who are better than us, who are experts in fields that we're not. We are not experts in this field. We have an interest.
There's a lot of them.
Right, exactly. I mean, and even to Chris's point, we have to ask questions. We can't tell people things. And so when it came to fact checking, we went to Countable, because all they do is examine bills. They examine bills. They spent their entire existence in that space. And so we said early on, about a year or so ago, we gave them everything we were doing to say, here you go. fact check this section by section, and so people can go there to follow up and do a deeper dive. That's one. The other thing I think it's important to remember is we're not Twitter, or we're not a forum that is giving a voice to everybody. These people are elected officials. People ask them to be in office, and they are there trying to pass or creating bills that affect people's lives. And so hopefully by removing a lot of the noise, and hopefully by not having a reward mechanism like likes or dislikes, there's no ability to galvanize anything, and so they're way more responsible just to their words, and you have a much more direct connection to those elected officials. And we do want to hear what their opinions are on issues so they can therefore be held accountable. And people from our site can go take action. And the only action you can take on our site is to register to vote and therefore be more engaged in your democracy, our democracy.
You talked a little bit about the likes and the dislikes. Is there anything else about the design of the site that you feel intentionally helps with the quality of the discourse, whether it's the time limits on some of the videos or the way you've structured equal time for both sides around an issue? Maybe Chris, I'll start with you, but Joe and Mark, chime in on how you created the platform with equity and with sort of civil discourse in mind.
Sure. Well, certainly I'll start in a more specific manner, but Section 3 of the website is counterpoints, where we have two elected officials from across the aisle who choose an issue they want to explore, and they have this back and forth structured debate. As you see in the video, I'll repeat some of the talking points, but a lot of times in televised debates, the inertia of a debate moves off topic. And I think with counterpoints, which I think is unique to anything else I've seen on the internet, it really provides a fair and balanced exploration around an issue. So I think that's going to be really helpful in a lot of ways. But the time limit, these 60-second sound bites, not to disparage the dwindling attention span of the world today, because I'm guilty of it. If I go online, if I need to watch a video on how to change a tire or something, and there's a 4-minute video or a 30-second video, I know which one I'm going to watch. So I do think it helps, especially for the political dilettante, someone who doesn't really know how to begin their educational process. Hopefully this provides a very gentle access point with succinct information without getting in the weeds.
Basically, in starting points, we have nothing goes up that doesn't have 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats. And we, as I said before, it's taken a while from people from both sides of the aisle to trust what our intentions are. As the site has gone on, like the video showed, we've evolved. The site evolved. And the site evolved not because, quite frankly, we just had ideas. The site evolved because the community we were talking to, which were the elected officials, felt more comfortable and started giving us ideas of what they wanted to say, which was more. So we recognize that, we've covered a lot of areas, and now we have the basis of a lot of different things that we'll continue to grow upon. We would actually probably continue to record, except this situation of the world has stopped us from physically going places, hence this digital mechanism that we're using right now. So, but we really tried to take I'd say at every stage of it, both in how we structured things, from a question standpoint, from going to DC, coming up with a blue background, to the framing, to the technology, we really have tried to do our best to hold each one of those up to the ideals of taking our narrative out of the situation, giving it to the elected officials, and making it to be as even of a mechanism so people could get clean information directly from the source.
I want to come back in a minute to whether or not the caliber of the points and counterpoints has been different than what you expected, and if maybe the delta between the left and the right isn't quite as large as people perhaps perceive now that people have an opportunity to see it real time. But what I'd like to do now is invite Mia Charity to join the panel. Mia is Chief Development Officer at Close Up Foundation, a nonprofit, nonpartisan organization that serves students, teachers, educators, parents with educational programs, classroom resources, and professional development opportunities for educators. A Starting Point recently announced Close Up Foundation as its education partner. Welcome, Mia.
Thank you for having me. Good to join you.
Chris, I've heard you liken ASP to Schoolhouse Rock, which for those of us of a certain age will remember, it's that beloved animated series that ran during Saturday morning cartoons. But those were musical shorts that basically taught lessons in history and civics, math, and grammar. Chris, why was it important for ASP to have an educational component or an educational partner?
Well, I think the more you can create connection with young people to the political process, the more it feels not only familiar and comfortable, but it feels like something that you should be engaged in. It's part of your civic duty. This isn't just something you can take or leave as a hobby. It promotes engagement. It promotes curiosity and exploration. And obviously, Mia has been doing this a lot longer than we have, so we're incredibly lucky to be partnered with her. But I agree, Schoolhouse Rock is a good reference because I do think this can be used in a really effective way to expose people at a very young age to the political process and not just the process, but even just the verbiage, the names of policies and terminology that I think can feel daunting to the political neophyte.
And, Schoolhouse Rock was meant as an example of demystification, and simplifying things in a way that didn't kowtow and still made it accessible and educational. And Close Up, we've been talking to Mia for, I think, almost a year and a half now. And again, back to my point, like I said earlier, we need to reach out to people who are actual experts in this. And so, all we've done is gone to Mia and say,
Help.
What
do we do?
How can we be better? And then how can we offer our technology up to you so that we can do the mechanisms that we have that can serve the syllabuses and the curriculums that you're creating.
Right.
Mia, you have so many great digital tools available to help students and teachers engage in civic life. What does ASP bring to you and to educators that heretofore didn't exist?
Well, I think making an opportunity for young people and students to be able to connect with each other, understand and learn from each other, but also share their insights and feelings about issues that they care about with elected officials. And so, given the environment that we're in right now, that used to happen for Close Up and in-person programs. And we are very grateful to have our partnership with ASP because now we have an opportunity to meet young people and students in schools where they are when digital learning probably continues for the near future. So we consider it as a new asset and opportunity for young people to connect with each other and those from different backgrounds and with their elected officials.
So I know it's early days for this partnership, but can you talk a little bit about what that partnership can look like and how you envision taking advantage of the ASP assets for students, particularly if we are in a remote learning situation in the fall?
Absolutely. We're going to take the information and videos that are currently on the ASP site and provide some resources and materials to make it a little bit more accessible for the classroom. Adding a little bit more background, prompting more discussion and opportunities to have conversations with each other, peers in the classroom, and ultimately peers, hopefully with students and teachers from different communities across the country. So in the fall, we'll have immediate resources available for the classroom. Then we will pilot a few virtual opportunities for connection, and then we'll build from there.
What role, if any, does having Chris's involvement in ASP play, particularly as you were trying to appeal to a younger audience, an audience that may not consider politics very sexy? As you've started to have conversations with students and educators about ASP, does that sweeten the deal a little bit?
Absolutely. When you think about the term civic education, most people don't even know what you're talking about. But it is the real work that everyone needs to do to hold elected officials accountable, to be informed, to be engaged. So having a platform with Mark, Joe, and Chris to be able to elevate the need for that is exceptional. Everybody looks towards Election Day, and that's sort of the place where we measure that engagement, but the work continues. And I think because ASP is willing to continue to do that work, it's part of that process. It's part of being an engaged citizen and having your voice heard, keeping those accountable in power, and learning from others about their experience so we can come up with solutions to the challenges that we face in our democracy and collaborate and come to a place of an agreement as we take on those challenges.
When we announced that we were doing this panel today, we got a lot of desire from participants on Twitter and other platforms to ask questions. So if it's okay with you, gentlemen, I've got a couple of questions I'd like to share from Twitter. The first one comes from @MLRWrites, and she asks, has there been a political topic or issue that has proven challenging to get a bipartisan response for? And if so, what issue? And Joe, you had mentioned that there were a couple of times you couldn't get the equal side buy-in. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
I'll give that hot potato to Chris.
I mean, well, you know, there was, you know, I mean, you'll see on the site, the section 1 of the site, again, not to break down the individual mechanisms too much, but the section 1 of the site is starting points, where it is basic answers to common questions. And so we had a whole litany of issues we were hoping to get information on, and obviously there were some topics that certain elected officials didn't want to speak on. And as Mark said earlier, we only put up answers that had at least 3 Democrats and at least 3 Republicans giving responses, just to give a spectrum. So certain issues that we didn't get the responses from were, you know, in our opinion, frustrating at first. But to be fair, we're trying to cultivate a relationship with elected officials. So we have to measure what we ask of them. And as this mechanism grows, it's a living thing. I think we're all in this mentality, at least Mark and I, of being in the movie world, where you get one shot at an opening weekend and that's it. This is a living thing. This is a car we can fix while it's on the road. And I think once we show our symbiotic worth, when you see that everybody kind of wins here, and elected officials specifically realize that this is a mechanism that can help them connect to their constituents, over time, hopefully we can ask more and more questions and get more and more answers. So we were conscious of not letting perfect become the enemy of good. And we are aware that there are certain things in that first section of the website under starting points that we didn't cover everything we wanted. We came close on a few. We'd have maybe 3 responses on one side, maybe 2 on the other side. And again, we had to draw the line somewhere. So unless it's 3 and 3, it didn't make it. But again, over time, we're going to continue to collect these responses, and hopefully with each passing year, we can expand that information and cover more and more topics.
And let me just add to that, as we grew, we didn't just go to DC, we now involved mayors. And so as we did that, more and more people want to talk about more and more things. Yeah. We're just, doing this ourselves, and our team has grown. We have these amazing people that have helped us do this. But we are working, as we've gotten trust, we've grown, and we need to continue to grow. We're trying to keep up. So yeah. We'll get all of them in.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there.
I'm going to ask another question. This one is from @Laura Mayo. She asks, how will ASP navigate the fine balance between exposing people to new perspectives with the risk of giving equal weight to concepts that are potentially harmful to equivocate upon, particularly in the current climate? And she writes, for example, the BLM movement.
Sure, it's a good question. First off, let me just say in a more overall point of view, I believe that pulling information from sources beyond your echo chamber can only lead to a more clear understanding of an issue, not only a clearer understanding of an issue, but a clearer understanding of yourself and who you are and what you believe. Now, I'm sure there are going to be people who take umbrage with some of the elected officials we chose to sit down with because they may feel that their specific opinions are damaging, even pernicious, and we are living in a time right now where we don't kind of say, well, it's your opinion versus mine. We now equate it with good versus evil, and people could say that giving certain elected officials a voice gives them a platform. But I would argue that they already have a voice. They already have a platform. They're in office. They're writing policy. They're affecting your lives. So I think to ignore them is more pernicious. I think to try and shout louder than them just leaves everybody screaming. I'm a believer in let it be a landscape of competing ideas and let the best idea win. I can see why some people may take issue, but again, I think it's more dangerous to pretend that certain people's perspectives don't exist.
And you know, if I could add one thing.
Please.
If we don't include everybody, then again, we will have a limited audience where they don't trust the site.
Yeah.
And going back to wanting to have it, hopefully, all 370 million Americans getting the same data and therefore reaching similar conclusions goes out the window once again. So we need them to come and listen.
Yeah, I just don't think you can convince someone of something or change a mind by only offering the information you want them to hear.
So to wrap up, I wanted to ask all the participants to share a couple of final thoughts. Mia, I'm going to start with you. You've been working for a while on this educational partnership that you've finally been able to announce. I know these are unusual circumstances, but what's the buzz in Washington about ASP from your point of view?
Everyone that I've talked to is pretty excited. I think we're all finally happy to see the launch come to fruition, and I think everybody's pretty excited to check out the site and see where it goes from here.
Joe, at the top of this conversation, we talked a little bit about how your motive in starting and launching new ventures and initiatives has never been the profit motive. Tell us how you'll deem ASP a success in your mind. What are the milestones, or what are the metrics that you'll use to measure whether this venture has been worth your time, money, and considerable blood, sweat, and tears?
Well, I think probably the best measure will be, do we get more voters out? Not just during a presidential election, but the midterms. I think last election, we got a lot of turnouts. I'm not sure how much of credit we can take, but in 2016, it was dismal. Over 5 million young people did not vote. And to have this partnership with Mark, who's a great creative mind, director, producer,